Hello, friends. Welcome to the third episode of How Did I Get Here, a series where I talk about the last 5 years of my life being homeless, traveling across America. This video might be a little long. The last two videos, I only talked about each state I went to. This one, I'm doing two states because one was very interesting and the other was just good stories. So I came in down through North Carolina off the mountains, and after I got off the mountains, it was all flats, which was so odd to me. I grew up in West Virginia. I'm used to having mountains everywhere, and now I'm in North Carolina, and everything's just completely flat. First story I want to talk about, I don't remember which city this was. It was a fairly decent sized city. But I remember I was sitting outside of a grocery store, charging my phone up. There was an outlet out there. And this guy comes over and he sits down next to me, and he's completely wasted. So wasted. And, he's nice. And then he started, catcalling women and being very, very vulgar. And one of the women kind of got up in his face. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be associated with this guy. So I get up. And I'm like, yeah, it was nice meeting you. I'm leaving. And I walk away. And nightfall has came at this point. And I was looking on Google Maps, wondering where I could sleep. And I noticed some woods right behind the grocery store. So I walk back, looking for a place to just crash for the night. When a police officer comes up behind me and stops me, he's like, I don't think you're the guy I'm looking for. And he explains the situation. I'm like, oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I was sitting with him and I got away from him. It's like, police officer's like, yeah, that was a good move. We know him quite well. He causes trouble. And I get talking to the police because I've never had a bad experience with police. Police have always helped me. And I asked them straight up, if I go back in them woods, are you guys gonna bust me? And one cop said, I wouldn't recommend doing that. And he said, there's a cul-de-sac down in this area somewhere. He was very specific, but this is so long ago, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said, there's a cul-de-sac down here. The development stopped on it. It's nothing but trees and stuff. You can sleep down there. Ain't no one gonna bother you. And I asked him, are there other homeless people down there? I kind of like to be alone. He's like, yeah. Last I checked, there wasn't anyone down there. And we kept talking, and he asked me, where I'm going, where I'm heading. And I told him, I'm going down through High Point, North Carolina, and then, just going to keep walking. And he looked at me and he said, you be careful in High Point. It's not a place you want to be. I said, oh, thank you for the tip. And he was definitely right. But I'll get to that in a minute. So I go down to the cul-de-sac, and yeah, it's nothing but woods. No people, no houses anywhere. And I found a little place to just set up my hammock, passed out, great sleep. So he helped me out a lot there. Started heading south when I got into High Point, North Carolina, which is the Winston-Salem, Greensboro area. Was it a Tri-City area? Something like that. And this was probably the scariest place I've ever been to thus far. Been out in the woods, gotten lost on a few trails, woken up to bears. But I was most scared in High Point. It was a city. Clearly, there was a lot of drugs, a lot of crime. This is back in 2020. Hopefully things have changed. I remember I was looking for a place to sleep, and I was just like, I don't want to sleep anywhere near the city. So I ended up getting on the railroad tracks. And I walked the railroad tracks probably about a mile and ducked out in the woods there, right by the tracks. Slept there for the night. Woke up, and I got the heck out of High Point. Made my way to Ashboro. I'll never forget this city. This is somewhat of a small city, but night and day to High Point. At least the area I was in. I sat down outside of a CVS, just charging my phone up. And I want to get into something real quick, just for some context. On this entire journey, I never blew a sign or panhandled or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with it, right? Like, people who got to do what they got to do to survive. I respect it. But just for me personally, I was never put in the situation where I had to. Obviously, if there was moments where, I'm starving to death, I'm on the brink of death, I'm going to die. Yeah, I'm going to get a piece of cardboard, I'm going to get a marker, and I'm going to do what I got to do to survive. But I've just never had to. Whether it be because, people just randomly gave me money or food, or, a lot of times I would try and find just odd jobs. If you see a U-Haul truck, I'd walk up. Do you need help moving your stuff? Or, I went to a few restaurants and you need the dishwasher for a night. Just stuff like that. And that's how I made a lot of my money. But anyway, I'm sitting outside of the CVS in Ashboro, just charging my phone. Person walks up to me and they give me like $10. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And then another person walks up to me, and then another, and then another, and then another. And I ended up getting like $80, like just sitting outside of this CVS store. I'm not asking for it. I'm just sitting there charging my phone up. I was probably just scrolling Reddit or something. And that I don't know, that always just stuck with me. Like, it wasn't just like one person just, giving me a large sum of money, which has happened many times. I've had a lot of people just, hand me $100 bills. This is like an entire community helping, which was so cool. It was so cool. After that, I got out of Ashboro. I head south. And I think by this point, it is December. It is Christmas Eve. And I want to say this is the worst Christmas I've ever had. Yeah, the only other Christmas that was kind of bad was in Midland, but I don't think it was as bad as this. Could have been a near-death experience, but, well, I'll talk about it. It's Christmas Eve, and I'm looking on my weather app, and it says that, it's going to get very cold. Not as cold as Fancy Gap. It's only supposed to get down to like 28 degrees. And there's supposed to be some wind, not a lot of wind. But the big thing was it was supposed to rain on Christmas Eve. And I looked at my weather app at night, and it said, rain starting at like 10 p.m. or something like that. And I was like, all right, well, if the rain's not going to start till 10 p.m., I can make a few miles and, then camp out. And I looked on Google Maps, and I saw a bridge, and I could get there by like 8 p.m. or something like that. So that's what I'll do. And I'll start walking. And everything's going great. And then around 6 p.m., starts downpouring. All right, rain came early. So I'm soaking wet. And I remember at this time, it wasn't that cold. It was probably only 40s. But I'm soaking wet, and I know it's going to be extremely cold tomorrow. Or that night. I keep walking. I'm just like, I'll just push through and I'll get to this bridge, because there isn't really anywhere else for me to sleep. I remember I was walking down this roadway, and the rain had settled for a minute, and I just wanted to get off my feet and relax. So I jumped the guardrail and just sat down, and like not 2 minutes later, I see a police officer pass by me, and he stops. And then another police officer is coming from the other direction, and he stops. And they're sitting there, they're like talking to each other, like 30 feet away from me. And I'm just wondering, like, did somebody call them looking for me, and then I just happen to duck, over the guardrail at the, wrong time or right time, depending on how you look at it. I don't know. But that always stuck with me. And I keep walking. Starts raining again. And I'm soaking wet. And I finally get to the bridge when I get under there. And I actually made a Reddit post about this. I'll put that up on screen. And I'll read it just for fun. So yeah, this is what I posted to Reddit. I'll put it up on screen and I'll read it. I messed up, peeps. I tried to get to the next town over and got caught in a thunderstorm. Everything is soaked, besides my sleeping bag. It's only slightly wet. Oh, and it's supposed to get down to 30 degrees tonight. I have one of those SOL bivy sacks that reflects 90% of body heat. I'm inside it with it inside my sleeping bag. Also, any suggestions on how I can be more comfortable through the night are welcome. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. 6 a.m., think I'm going to make it. I actually stayed warm all night. The bivy worked out, but not as intended. Water dripped from my clothes all through the night and formed a puddle. I occasionally took a rag, soaked it up. As of now, I'm mostly dry. So yeah, I did the same mistake. I had thought I learned from my last mistake and actually put the bivy on the outside of my sleeping bag. But apparently, I'm glad I read this old post. I made the same mistake I did in Fancy Gap, and I put it on the inside. But I remember I was under the bridge, and it was quite windy. It wasn't super windy, but again, as I said in the previous video, being under a bridge kind of acts as a wind tunnel. It just increases wind speed. And yeah, your sleeping bag was a little wet. Apparently, I put the bivy on first and the sleeping bag over it. I don't know why I did that again, but I apparently did. And I made it through the night. And I remember the next morning it was 30 degrees. And I got out of my sleeping bag and everything. And it's Christmas. And right next to the bridge is just like a grassy field. It's a grassy hill. It's got a big slope on it. And I just laid down in the grass and soaked up the sun because it was a bright, sunny day. Cold, but bright and sunny. Soaked up the sun. I remember I stayed there pretty much the entire day. I think maybe around 2 or 3 p.m. I finally packed up and I went into town. Everything was closed because it was Christmas. It was a small town. And kept walking. Ended up finding a church. And I slept in the woods right next to a church. Woke up to some churchgoers the next morning. They didn't see me, as far as I'm aware, but I woke up and I heard them talking. And then they left. I packed up, and I left. I just remembered something. This is why this wasn't as bad. I just remembered why this night wasn't as bad as the one in Fancy Gap. Because a few weeks beforehand, it was definitely in North Carolina, I had gone to Walmart and I had purchased an actual sleeping bag. The sleeping bag I was sleeping in was rated for like 50 degrees. The one I got from Walmart was rated for 30 degrees, or it might have been 32. And it was a mummy sleeping bag, and it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that's probably the reason I remember being a lot warmer in North Carolina than I was in Fancy Gap, because even though the sleeping bag was a little wet, it was so much warmer. So yeah, I'm glad I remembered that and added that in there. So anyway, I'm walking down through North Carolina. I'm about to enter South Carolina. This is another moment I really remember vividly. I was outside of a laundromat charging my phone up. It's an outlet on the outside. The owner of the laundromat came out. He was like, it was a little chilly that night, or that day. It was probably chilly that day, or maybe it was raining. But the owner of the laundromat came out and was like, hey, you don't got to be out here. You can come inside and charge yourself up. No one's going to bother you. Oh, appreciate it. I go inside the laundromat and just charge up. That was really cool. So now I get into South Carolina, and the portion of South Carolina is going to be quite short, but there was 2 moments, and that both happened in the same town back to back, that I will always remember. So the first, and these are going to be good stories. Always love ending the video on a positive note. I was in Cheraw, South Carolina. If I ever move to South Carolina, I'm going to Cheraw. Not because of, like, the geography or anything, but just because of the people. And I'm sitting outside of a shopping center, an outdoor shopping center, charging my phone up. And somebody called the cops. And a police officer shows up. And I remember his name, but just in case what I say could possibly get him in trouble, I won't give his name. But I do remember his name and everything. And he tells me, I don't want you sitting out here. And he asked me for my story, and I explained everything to him. He said, you know what? Go over to the McDonald's across the street. Or it might have been a Hardee's. It was a Hardee's. Go to the Hardee's across the street, and I'll be there. Okay. So I go across. I'm in the parking lot. He comes back like 10 minutes later, and he's got an entire, like, one of those Walmart rotisserie chickens, like a bag of beef jerky, a gallon of water, and 6 cans of RC Cola. I think there was also like a candy bar in there. And he's just like, pass it forward someday. And that was really cool. Right? Like, he didn't have to do that. And I ate really good that night. And then after that, I went down to the park. And yeah, I don't know why I was chilling at the park that day. I think I might have just been like a rest day. Like, I'd been walking so much, I'm just going to take a day off, kind of hang out at the park. But I go down to the park, and I'm sitting at one of the picnic tables underneath. It was raining. That's why. It was raining. I didn't feel like walking in the rain. I was sitting underneath one of the pavilions at a picnic table. And a random guy shows up, sits down across from me in the pavilion, like a couple picnic tables down, and he's eating his lunch. And he strikes up a conversation with me about what I'm doing and everything. At this point, my backpack is not in the best shape. It's kind of fraying at some places. And he notices it. He says, yeah, I got a few backpacks. You want one? Sure. You're like, all right, I'll be down here tomorrow morning. It's like, all right. And I ended up sleeping out in the woods in that park. I remember there were coyotes, or it could have been foxes. I remember hearing them barking through the night. I don't know if barking's the right word. It didn't bother me, but they were definitely there that night. Wake up, go back to the pavilion, chill there for a little bit. Guy comes over, brings me breakfast, and he has 3 backpacks. He's like, whichever one you want. So I picked out a backpack. It was basically the same backpack as I was already using, except it was camouflage and in much better shape. And he took my old backpack, and I set off. And yeah, Cheraw was in like the northern part of South Carolina, and I don't remember anything else interesting really happened in South Carolina. I'm sure at some point I'll remember something, but I just made my way from South Carolina and came into Georgia. Got into Savannah, Georgia. And we will talk about Savannah, Georgia and the rest of Georgia in the next video. A lot of interesting things happened in Georgia. Good things. A lot of good things. And one very bad thing. Not very bad. One major annoyance happened in Georgia. We will put it that way. So yeah, that's going to be this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Next video, hopefully tomorrow. And I will see you all later. Peace out, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day.